Hey everybody, Father Bonner here. We are in Friday of the 7th week in Ordinary Time. I remind you that in a few days from now, on March the 5th, we are going to enter into the season of Lent. But for today, on the 28th of February, our Gospel text is taken from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, verses 1 to 12. Now, I want to place this text, as I always do, in its context. What is the context so far? Chapter 8 and 9, Jesus has been speaking of his passion, death, and resurrection. You'll hear it for the third time now in chapter 10, verses 33. And really, Jesus is heading to his cross, and he's going to take up some heavy topics now. And one of them is that dying to yourself. And that I would like to apply to the text of today, which is a very practical text, something that affects our lives. It's as practical as forgiveness. It's the issue of divorce. So listen carefully, because I'm sure when I talk about divorce, everybody is very, very interested. Now, text in context. Jesus has entered the region of Judea. Remember, Judea is in the south, Galilee is in the north. Capernaum is in the north. Jerusalem is in the south, in the region of Judea. But Jesus is now in the region beyond Jordan. So region called Perea, and it was ruled by Herod Antipas. Now, the very next chapter, chapter 11, verse 1, Jesus will enter Jerusalem. So you can see the proximity of his teaching to what we would celebrate as Palm Sunday. The crowds are following him. The gospel mentions this again and again. It mentions it in today's text. And as his custom was, he is teaching. He is teaching now on this topic, not because he was pushed into it. You can see that the Pharisees are going to trick him. I don't know whether Jesus meant to have to raise this topic, but you can see very clearly they push him in. Verse 2 tells us that the Pharisees want to test him. Not the first time they want to test him. We saw in chapter 8, verse 11, they demanded a sign from heaven to test him. Earlier, the scribes and the Herodians pick up a fight with Jesus. So you can see that the religious establishment is against Jesus all the while, and they want to test him. What are they testing him on? They have tested him, as we see in the other Gospels, on religious issues. Whose wife will this person be in heaven? They have tested him on political issues. Should we pay taxes to Caesar? This is one that was very contentious, on divorce. So, why was it contentious? Because at the time of Jesus, there were two distinct schools of thought led by two rabbis. The school of Shammai, which was a very strict orthodox school, which said that you could divorce someone only on grounds of sexual impurity. And then there was the school of Hillel, under Rabbi Hillel, which really said, you don't like the breakfast your wife made? Good luck to her. Give her a writ of dismissal, you can divorce her. Now, they bring this question to him. Is it legal to divorce one's wife? What does Jesus say? Now, listen carefully to this. He says, what did Moses command you? He uses the word command. And they answer, they do not say Moses commanded us, because they know they'll get caught. They said Moses permitted us. That's quite different, yeah. A permit is given as an exception, yeah. So they don't answer Jesus as this is what he commanded. They say he permitted. Why do they say this? And they're right. They're very clever, because when you look at Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1 to 4, and please read this text. Deuteronomy 24, verse 1 to 4. What is it? Moses does not recognize, or the text of Deuteronomy 24, 1 to 4 does not recognize divorce. It recognizes the reality of divorce. Yeah, it gives you a clear case where, well, it's like we say today, is divorce a reality? Yes, it is. But Deuteronomy didn't recognize divorce. It recognized the reality of divorce, and the Pharisees, as usual, twist and turn all of Scripture to their own convenience. That is why in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus will repeatedly say, you have heard it say, because you've heard the Pharisees say, but I say to you, I am the lawmaker, I am the lawgiver. So Jesus says to them, you're right, Moses permitted you. He didn't command you, he permitted you. He accepted the reality of divorce because your hearts were hardened. And this hardness of heart is not just one person. It's not the person who has committed adultery. The hardness of heart can also be on the side of what I call the victim, the one who's been faithful in marriage, but their hearts are also hardened by saying, I will not forgive. Yeah, I will not forgive. So there is an issue of hardness of heart. So therefore, Jesus says, let's go to the one whose idea this is. So remember that the idea of marriage is God's. Yeah, can I say that again? It is God's idea. Jesus says, let's go back to the beginning. He takes you straight to the book of Genesis. Let's go back to the beginning, because God was the one who created this idea of marriage. And Jesus says, it is for this reason that a man leaves his father and mother. The first word, leave, is joined to his wife, cleave, and the two become one, weave. Leave, cleave, weave. A man leaves his father and mother. The Hebrew word is really abandon. But it's not, I don't care for my parents. No. I now give all my energy to my spouse. That's what it really means. And this abandoning is not only of parents, it's of everything. All my likes, my wants, my interests, everything takes a back seat. That's what abandoning really means. That's what leaving really means. Everything, including father and mother, take a back seat. Yeah? It doesn't mean that you don't have to help your father and mother. Second, Jesus says, he cleaves to his wife or cleaves to her husband. Yeah? They're joined, they're glued together. This is the permanence in marriage. Yeah? There's a nice example given when people say, when you have a divorce, nothing really happens to the children. The children manage, they'll figure their way out. And somebody once said, stick two sheets of paper together and then try to separate it. Stick it with glue, leave it for a couple of hours, and then try to separate it. There's always damage. There is always damage. Yeah. So the word cleave, really, when Jesus mentioned it, had also the understanding that husbands and wives are yoked together. You know what a yoke is? It's put on oxen. They both are yoked together. And I like that image. Yeah, they are together in everything that they do. They have to go in the same direction. In that sense, yes, you might say marriage takes away my individuality, but it brings you the third thing. It brings you the weaving together. The two become one. Yeah, there is a wonderful unity. And this becoming is not instantaneous. Ask a lot of couples. They'll tell you the first 3 years, 4 years, they had their, their ups and downs. Maybe they continue to have it. Ups and downs are part of everything. The weaving is not instant, like coffee or Maggi noodles. Marriage is a very delicate thing. Can I say that again? Marriage is very delicate. For all those who are romanticizing marriage, or rather they romanticize their wedding day, good luck to you. When you wake up, you will realize that you have a very delicate thing in your hand, that it's very fragile. So a quick 7 reflections, fast ones. I said marriage is God's idea. If it's God's idea, then He can only modify it, amend it, remove it, eradicate it, whatever you want. You and I can do nothing about it. And make no mistake, every effort on the part of the world is going to fail, because this is His idea. Number 1. Number 2, a marriage is breakup because, as Jesus says, there's a hardness of heart. Can you melt your heart in your marriage? If you just, stick to your guns and don't make room for forgiveness, you're ending up in a very tough spot in your marriage. Number 3, the solution to difficult marriages or difficulties in marriages is not to desert the other. Yeah? The solution to a difficult marriage is not to desert the other, it's to forgive the other. And that's what we are called to do. Number 4, marriage is not some social contract. Yeah? It's a covenant. It's spiritually binding, what God has joined together. So this is not just a business of two people who say, I want to marry you and will you marry me? No, it's the third dimension too, what God has joined together. He brings us together, and we need to stress this reality because a lot of young couples think that this is their idea. Yeah. Number 5, God very clearly says man or woman should not put marriage asunder. You have no business. You can't take sides in a marriage. And I know very often while talking to couples, it may appear that I've taken sides. But basically, you analyze the situation and deal with it in the best possible way, encouraging the couple to come together. But we have no business to put it asunder, even more if we are responsible for breaking up a marriage. You know, sometimes I just find parents, and I've seen this, and I'm not saying all cases, but in some cases, parents are responsible for breaking up a marriage. And how sad is that? The 6th point, the text of today does not give us exemptions in marriage. Yeah, there are no exemptions. The blueprint of God did not have an external back door, yeah, where somebody can escape from a marriage. And that's why the idea of a prenuptial agreement is bizarre. The fact that you sign a prenuptial agreement, it means that you expect the marriage to break. Yeah? But God never created marriage with flaws in it. He never created a backdoor exit for us to run away. And finally, I want to say a very pastoral word, because some of you might feel horribly guilty and you'll say, oh, I've divorced, and now what's going to happen? Divorce does not mean you're a failure. Yeah? Or you may have contributed to the failure of the marriage, but it doesn't make you a failure. Can you see the difference? Divorce, therefore, does not define you. It's not the best thing to have happened to you, but it doesn't define you, because God's love defines you. Submit yourself to His love. If you like this teaching, share it with others, and leave your comments, and do subscribe to this channel. Bye, everybody.